Okay, it's the early hours, hence the lighting, but as long as you can hear me okay, that's the main point. I want to talk a bit about straight pride, so-called straight pride, my thoughts on this and the event that happened in Boston. Um, no, this is just, I'm not reading any sort of news report or anything, which I often do, so any mistakes herein, it's just because I've forgotten precisely the details, so bear that in mind. So if I get any sort of name of any organization not quite 100% right, I take full responsibility for that. Um, so, this past week, there was an event organized in Boston, Massachusetts, um, organized by the Happy Fun something something of America. Apologies, I don't remember precisely. But anyway, it's a somewhat conservative organization that has organized this idea of a straight pride day. Now, some have accused him of simply trolling in order to get a response, but if that was the case, they've succeeded. The Boston City authorities got into hot water with the woke people because they agreed to this. They agreed to sanction the parade. And as the title would suggest, it was a parade to celebrate heterosexual people, men and women in relationships with one another. I don't know much about the parade itself. I've seen a few clips, so the counter demonstrations. Apparently, a number of arrests were made because of frankly violent counter demonstrations, presumably by LGBT people, but also by others who took exception to the fact that they were choosing the city of Boston for this. And there was a lot of angry scenes, and yeah, so those who said that the straight pride organizers were trying to get a reaction were trolling. Maybe they were, but they've kind of succeeded. Because if your thing is that, and I'll get into the concept of straight pride in a minute, but if your thing is they get enough attention as it is, the straight people, so let's, aggressively protest this demonstration, it seems to me it would be more practical to just ignore it. That way, they would have low numbers and it would be counterproductive for them. But why have large counter protests to bring them more attention? One student even said that it scared her. It scared her. Now, even if you don't agree with the event, that's surely hyperbole. That's surely an exaggeration to say that you're scared of a straight pride event. Okay, now about the issue itself. I'm a straight man. I love women. That's the way it is, right? Um, but I've got a number of gay friends, and I think I've only been to one or two pride events in the past. I can't really recall, but yeah. Do I feel the need for a straight pride? No, I don't. And I do agree that there is not the same historic context. Straight people have never been murdered primarily for being straight. There have been examples of racist murders. For example, interracial couples have been targeted by thugs, and they've had a pretty rough time in the past. And incidentally, I may as well put it in here that the late famous boxer Muhammad Ali didn't exactly help matters when he spoke out forcefully against mixed relations. Um, so there are examples of straight people in those sort of situations getting abused. And of course, there's all the so-called honor killings you get in parts of South Asia, where a woman has been with a man from another caste or another religion, and then she's brutally murdered, and sometimes men as well. We always hear about women, but sometimes it happens to men as well. It's no fun for a man being trapped in an arranged marriage either. Um, so there are certain challenges that you get in those sort of situations. But as far as I know, there's never been an example of someone being killed because they're straight. Someone being killed because, oh, you took my woman or you took my man, maybe, but not because they are straight. So there's no comparison there in the sense that gay people, were living under the shadows of the law until quite recently in many jurisdictions in the West. They're still persecuted brutally around the world. So there's no comparison. So the argument that there's no need for a straight pride parade is a valid one. I understand the context of gay pride was to provide a place where LGBT people could be comfortable being themselves. I'm a little critical of some aspects of pride. I think that overt references to sexuality, for example, men, um, going around with dildos and stuff. I'm not sure that really is the best approach. Of course, it's about pride, but I think it should also be about raising human rights awareness, as it often does. But of gay people persecuted in countries like Uganda. Um, so I don't like the overt sexual references in gay pride because I just don't think they're necessary. I think they're all they do is lend to the stereotype of gay men being promiscuous, which is not accurate. So, why reinforce a stereotype there? Um, Having said that, though, I think pride events are very good for a city's economy. Now, regarding this event, I can understand people taking issue with it because it probably was trolling. But their thing was, we're going to show how intolerant the regressive left can be, or the woke left, or whatever you want to call it. And they kind of proved that point because the counter demonstrations weren't peaceful, they were very vitriolic. The police had to hold people back, and there were, I believe it was 18 arrests made. Now, if your whole thing is to show the straight pride event is a homophobic nasty organization or whatever, then they were the ones being peaceful. They were simply holding their parade. So, in the end of the day, and I'd say the same of neo-Nazi marches, it's better in some ways, and I'm not saying this is true in every case, but surely it's better to, if you have, let me give an example. Let's say you have a clan meeting, right? And 20 people show up. Then you get 5,000 counter demonstrators. All the news attention will be on the counter demonstrators, and you might say, oh, well, that's taking away the oxygen from the clan people. But if there's only 20 people there, the media have nothing to go on. So they won't get attention in the first place. So by counter demonstrating, you're bringing them attention. And I know the argument you can't be complacent about political extremes. I personally think you can't be complacent about any extremes, left or right, of whatever ideology. And I will say this, I do think there is a faction within the LGBT lobby that is very intolerant. They demand that, for example, if we look at the pronoun issue, and that's worth a whole other video, but there is an intolerance there in terms of you have to conform exactly to my way of thinking or you're a homophobe. And you could be completely welcoming of gay people, you could be even for gay marriage, etc. But there is a militant tendency within the LGBT lobby that says, for example, we can go into your business and demand that you say something that you fundamentally disagree with. I think that's going too far. I think demanding a priest performs a gay wedding is going too far. Um, that's beyond the remit of equality, and it's actually forcing someone else to go against their own conscience. Um, and by the way, I'm for gay marriage in the nature of equality, but I think it should be done on the understanding that the person conducting the ceremony agrees with it. I don't think you can force someone by law to do something that is against their conscience in a place of worship. It's different outside. If you're asking a clergyman to do it in a civic office, which wouldn't really be the case anyway, but if that was the situation, that would be different because they would have to obey the law in that context. But asking a clergyman in a church, that's a bit like going into someone's house and demanding they agree with you. So I don't agree with that. Um, so yeah, straight pride summed up. I do think it's a little bit of a silly concept because straight people have never had the same historic persecution, and I don't personally feel any need for a pride event. I'm not ashamed that I am attracted to women, but am I proud of it? Not really. It's not an achievement. It just is. I like women. I'm a man. I like women. right? That's just the way it is. And there's some guys that like other guys, and that's just the way that is. Um, I couldn't care less. As long as they're civil to me, I'll be civil to them. Um, so the idea of a straight pride event is a bit silly. But the purpose of this particular event, to gauge a reaction, actually worked, and it proved their point. Whether you agree with that or not, it proved their point that there is an intolerance within the LGBT lobby. I mean, fundamentally, it's like those signs "it's okay to be white." They're obviously trying to get a reaction, but fundamentally, in of itself, it is okay to be white. It's not an achievement, but it's a fundamental truism, right? So, straight pride is someone who is proud to be straight. I personally don't think it's an achievement. But if you're really enraged by that, maybe you need to just calm down a bit and think, well, am I just kind of feeding the troll? Think about